Bangkok, of the capital of the former kingdom of Siam and the modern kingdom of Thailand. Welcome to Getting Dressed with the Creative Contessa. I am the Contessa, and today we're going to be dressing like an Italian Renaissance princess. I use that because that is what will please the algorithm, but the reality is that there is no Italy as such in the 15th century, and there are lots of princesses, and who can we really count the 15th century as a Renaissance or not? These are all deeper questions for a later conversation, and we might indulge in them while we watch me get dressed and while I talk about the process. So let me just make certain that all messages will actually be shown in the live chat so that I can actually converse with you as we do this. Right. So today I'm getting dressed alla Fiorentina, which means in the Florentine style. And the way I'm already starting off with you is Lily Pad, welcome. Lovely to see you. Welcome to Bangkok. Welcome to my humble little inn here, the Holiday Inn, very near the Central Pier in Bangkok, near the Chao Phraya River. Right. And I'm already starting off dressed in my under things, at least some of my under things. I'm already wearing my braids, my mudande, as they would be called in Italian, in Florentine Italian, or mutande, depending on the dialect. And I'm wearing my camicia, my linen undershirt. And as always, and I'll say this again, this linen underlayer is the layer that everyone in the medieval Europe wore against their skin from the first millennium, basically up until the 20th century. This is how people dressed. They had a white linen, later on cotton, but in the Middle Ages linen, layer against their skin. And this is what kept their overgarments smelling fresh. It's what kept their overgarments from getting grease from your skin, from their skin all over the overgarments. This is the layer that gets laundered, right? This is the layer that can be boiled. It can be soaked in fermented urine, which is ammonia. It can be beaten, it can be scrubbed, it can be violently abused, and then laid out on a grass meadow in full sunlight, flipped so that both the UV light helps bleach it, and so that also the oxygen being respirated by the grass helps bleach it from below. So everyone wore this. The only people who didn't were ascetic monks and very pious men and women who, instead of this, would wear this horsehair or goat hair shirt against their skin, and it would actually cause their flesh to develop sores and get infected. And it was part of their process of exhibiting their devotion to their beliefs by suffering in such a way. But it was so unusual at the time that when these people died, when these monks and nuns and priests and members of the church died and their bodies were cleaned for burial, and they found these shirts against their skin filled with lice, and they found these wounds on their flesh, it was remarked upon because it wasn't normal for people to be dirty and filthy so much that their bodies were covered in fleas and lice. Just putting that out there about the bullshit myth of the Middle Ages being a dirty, filthy time when no one washed their bodies and no one washed their hair, and everyone stank and walked around covered in layers of dirt that they just couldn't be bothered to wipe off, apparently. Right. Okay. So I am now putting on the next layer. This is called a gamora gamora in Florentine Italian, 15th century. It's called a couple of different things in other dialects of Italian in the 15th century, depending on where you were. Fashion in the 15th century, what we now call Italy, was highly regionalized. So you could tell where people came from based on the style of their garments. And in the household inventory, the palazzo inventory of Lorenzo de' Medici, for instance, when he died in 1494, they did an entire, there's a pin in this sleeve. When he died in 1494, they did a complete inventory of his palazzo. And he had many garments that have regionalizing names to them, right? He had garments alla Napoletana, alla Milanese, alla Veneziana, right? So he had garments in all these different styles. And, to our eye, it might not be a completely different fashion. You might look at it and say, oh, that's all Italian. But to their eye, it was different enough to qualify as foreign and interesting and exotic, right? Yeah. So if you have any questions as I'm getting dressed, please do feel free to pop them in the live chat. I'm now going to lace up my gamora. Now, this is laced up in a style that is called spiral lacing. And literally it's like whip stitching something together, except that this dress is designed purposefully to gap open in the front so that you can see the beautiful snowy white of my underwear, right? Remember, this camicia, this undershirt, this smoka, this chemise, this camisa, this hemd, and all the different sort of Western European languages they're in would have been considered underwear. It's now voluminous enough and it covers enough now that people would look at this and say, I could absolutely just wear this, just this white layer all by itself and be considered dressed. Not so in the 15th century. In the 15th century, a woman wearing just this was literally called naked, right? So their idea of naked was not our idea of naked, and that is something else very important to keep in mind. You might have to delete someone there, handsome. Yeah. 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 No. The guy who said, no, not that guy. No. Hola, Rodrigo. Bienvenido. Me gusta verte de nuevo. Yeah, good welcome, everyone. Yeah, did you? Good. Okay, so it starts at the bottom. At least there's some styles actually of 15th century gowns that do start at the top and lace downward. This one is, however, is designed to start at the bottom and lace upwards. And actually it should have a set of lacing holes here from my waist down, but I have never gotten around to installing those. So it would actually lace in two directions. It would lace from the waist up and then a separate lace from the waist down, right? Yeah. So this lace that I'm using is, you might think it's a shoelace, but it's not. It is a handmade lace, finger loop braided, so woven basically by hand using my fingers in a specific set of techniques and movements. And that is one of the primary methods for making laces for medieval garments, going really far back. The technique of finger loop braiding dates back to the Bronze Age, right? We actually have Bronze Age finds of extant finger loop braiding. So.
Not Amish. Not Amish.
Oh, did someone ask if I was Amish? Yeah, okay. I'm definitely not Amish. How am I not Amish? How can you tell? There's so many ways that you can tell I'm not Amish. One, I'm live streaming, getting dressed. Two, I have this massive, very low neckline. This is a low neckline, guys. Amish women and men wear garments that go up to their necks, right? They're very modest. 3, bright colors and stripes. Super fancy. 4, lots of fabric in the skirts, right? Look at how full these skirts are. This garment is conspicuous consumption par excellence, and the Amish life is all about simplicity and modesty. This whole thing says not simple, not modest, right? So definitely not Amish.
He says he's actually seen an Amish live stream.
That's an Amish live stream is actually they're pushing the envelope there. They are clearly moving away from the roots of the movement.
Are you from the 15th century? Asked Devantino Morella.
I am from the 15th century. Yeah. No, am I from the 15th century? I am not from the 15th century, but I am certainly attiring myself in the 15th century style. So now I'm just arranging. Oh, there it is. I found them. I found those pins that I mentioned earlier. Oh, wow, I just stuck one all the way to my bone. That'll be fun. Yeah. So I'm now just arranging my camicia, my smoka, this undergarment here, so that it is comfortable under the sleeves and so that there will be an appropriate amount of poof.
Remember, Watson says, this is awesome. I do living history and love historical garments.
Remember the poof. Yeah, I've been doing living history and exploring historical fashion since I was 14, back when no one had internet access, or very few people did, and back when the internet was nothing but a wasteland of chat rooms and porn, and there was no good information on it. So I started doing research into historical garments the really hard way, back when it was before everything was digitized and all these great books had been published and all these great research papers.
Do you sell this dress?
Do I sell this dress? I can be commissioned to make a dress like this for you. if you're interested in that, drop me an email, thecreativecontessa@gmail.com, or check out my website, thecreativecontessa.com, and we can absolutely talk. Unfortunately, most modern people are not interested in paying how much I would have to charge to make a gown like this because it's a lot of work, right? Yeah, but can be done. I'm happy to chat about it. And I do travel the world, and I can most likely time my travels to coincide wherever you are in the world at some point, so we can do measurements and fittings and that kind of thing. Yeah, okay. So I am now laced up. So you can see we've got some nice poofs. We've got the nice poofs, right? I've got complete. The great thing about this style of gown is that it really does give you mobility in your arms, right? But this is definitely not the final layer. I am still kind of technically in my underwear. So next we're going to put on a layer on top of this. I'm going to need, I forgot, I'm going to need a second lace. So if you could cut off more of that heavy duty silk thread. Right, so what we have next, this is a layer, this is layer 3. This is called a chopa, right? And this goes over top of the gamora. And chope it's just this kind of fitted over gown where it is fitted in the waist. Way too long. That should be long enough. Yeah. It is fitted in the overgown, fitted in the bodice rather. And in this case, it laces over top of the gamora. Right? But it also laces open in a V so that you can also see the V of the gamora. So you get this beautiful layering effect. And we know what kinds of colors people actually wore, not so much based on art, because I want you all to remember that art is dangerous when it comes to fashion history, right? Because what artists draw, what artists depict is not necessarily reality. Artists, humans, hear me out, folks. Artists are naturally creative, and they have just as much imagination, or had just as much imagination 600 years ago as they have now. So sometimes art from the 15th century may be realistic. It may show you every single detail. It may show you a fly sitting on a woman's headdress. It may show tiny, tiny creases in the fabric, or it may have the Renaissance filter applied, which means it's depicting an idealized state of perfection that no human actually ever achieves except through filters, right? It might also be depicting something legendary or fantastical or historical or biblical. And so then those characters are going to be depicted in specific clothing that would have said to the viewer in the 15th century, this is not a real person. This is Judith, the woman who slew an enemy general, right, and cut his head off with her own hands. So you have to be careful when it comes to looking at art, which is why, thankfully, documentary and archaeological evidence are really fantastic. Unfortunately, for the 16th, 15th century, we don't have a plethora of Italian garments. It will. We don't have a plethora of Italian garments from the 15th century that have survived. There's one gamora, like this one, but not exactly in this style, belonged to a 13-year-old prepubescent young lady who hadn't even yet developed curves. So it doesn't tell us anything about fitting for a curvy woman who actually has breasts, right? We have 2 men's garments that have survived very well intact for doublets, for the farsetto, as it's called, but we really just don't have a lot. So then we can turn to documentary evidence. And documentary evidence includes fascinating publications. Oof, did you happen to bring squishers?
No, but I probably can if I here.
Yeah, this needs to be squished. It's attached to me. Yeah, so we have fascinating documentary evidence such as wills, death inventories. A death inventory is a listing of everything that a person owns at the time of their death for the purposes of inheritance and property redistribution, asset collection, that sort of thing, right? We also have expense accounts. Because people, yeah, I think so. We also have expense accounts because, people used to literally keep the books for their own households. They carefully, unlike modern people in the West, especially in the United States, unlike many of us now who just kind of spend money and hope that we have enough to cover it. That's good. It's perfect. It's perfect. Yep. People now that back then kept assiduous accountings of their spendings and their incomings, right? So the money they earned, the money that they collected. Oof. Damn. Okay, maybe not.
Okay, well, while we switch this over, you
Yep.
have a couple of questions.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Wait, let me finish this thought. Right. So we actually have details about the colors, the actual colors of garments based on these expense accounts, because when they buy clothing, they specify the fabric of which it's made and the color, and sometimes even the weave, the pattern. So we know from documentary evidence, which is going to be very factual for the purposes, what kind of colors they actually have. And we know, therefore, that in 15th century Italy, they absolutely had light colors like this pink. It wasn't all bright, 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 vibrant colors. Colors, but not necessarily bright colors. Pink was absolutely a very common color for men and women in 15th century Florence. So keep that in mind. You can't look at art and say, well, they painted her in blue, therefore people wore blue dresses. No. But we can look at the archaeological evidence and say, well, we found lots of textiles that have been dyed blue. We know how they did it because we have dyeing manuals from the 15th century that talk about how to dye fabric blue, right? We have expense accounts that talk about blue garments, right? That's how we know. So just keep that in mind. You can't just look at a painting and say that's how they did it. Now, if you're just making clothes because you want something pretty and, somewhat historical, who cares, right? But if you care about the authenticity of your garments, you really do have to look at so much more than just the imagery from the era, if you're lucky enough that it's available, right? Obviously, in some places, some geographies, and some eras, we just don't have that kind of information, unfortunately. Okay, questions?
Is the sleeves not being fully attached just a style thing, or was it for function as well? Or had they not figured out how to attach sleeves?
That is a very good question. The question is, are the sleeves not being completely attached the way they are here, fashion, function, or a lack of sophistication in tailoring? It is absolutely not a lack of sophistication in tailoring. In the 14th century, they designed the most amazing and most sophisticated sleeve cap of history. Fight me on this. The Grande Assiette Armscye is so sophisticated that it fits over the shoulder perfectly. It allows the wearer complete movement. We have pictures of executioners in this garment with their arms straight above their head and a completely skin-tight garment, and nothing is being pulled or tugged out of place, right? So no, this is fashion. This is pure fashion. It's got nothing to do with function. Basically, as the 15th century wore on, women started showing more and more of their underwear. And so this is just another way to show more of your underwear, and it looks quite fetching. I mean, look at the pretty white poofs. How can that? It's just so lovely. Yeah, it's a fashion. That's a great question, though.
Somebody asked if the thread was pink because they don't see any pink. It's just coming through as white in the video. I can't see that.
Oh, right.
You look very.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's funny. This looks more pink or less pink depending on the light. It's a very light pink, but it's definitely not white. And it is a replica 15th century damask pattern.
Oh, I missed this one. Chad Watson asked, do you do different time periods or mainly 15th to 17th century? They only.
No. I do. No, I don't. I've dabbled in a lot of different periods in terms of historical fashion. I have dabbled in ancient Greek and ancient Roman. I've dabbled in, 10th century Norse. I used to do 12th century French pretty heavily.
We need to keep moving.
Yeah. I have done 15th century or 14th century. I've done 16th century. I've done 17th century. I've done 18th century. I've done 19th century. So I'm a fashion lover. I love the history of fashion, and not just Europe. I'm currently in the midst of a massive historical Korean fashion research project, for instance. Okay, we have to get going. We have to keep going, rather. So I'll just tell you what we're about to do. We're about to do my hair, and it's my condottiero who's actually going to be doing my hair. And so I think maybe I will face, because I'm mic'd up, so this won't matter too badly. So you can see what the process is here. Okay, so we're going to be using,
You can look at.
Oh, right. We're going to be doing a technique called hair taping. And hair taping literally means using ribbon, which is called tape historically, to bind my hair instead of using pins or hair clips or, God knows, rubber ties, which didn't exist in Europe in the Middle Ages. Let me see. What about stays for the era you're dressing for now, or is it just a chemise type dress? Pak Jere, are you Korean? First off, yeah. So Jere, there are no stays in this era. So we don't even see a garment-like stays until the very end of the 16th centuries, where you really start to see that. They're called a pair of bodies. So this is not that kind of era. The silhouettes are not stiff. That's why they're kind of soft and round. The garments are fitted and tailored to shape the body, but soft shaping, not hard shaping. So yeah, we don't have any evidence of any kind of stiffener. Some people claim that they've seen that they think cording using fabric cords, built into the garment, lining of the garment to create stiffness is appropriate. I've never seen any evidence of that. Not archaeological, not documentary, not anything. So, basically, the one extant bodice we have from this era is of a gamora, like this, the green gown that I'm wearing, it's a wool shell. It consists of a wool shell, and it is lined in linen, and it's not even interlined. Later in the 16th century, we have some garments from Italy, multiple garments, many more garments. None of those have stiffening either. They don't have any stiffening. What they have is soft stiffening. They have layered stiffening. They have padding of cotton. They've got felted wool interlining. They've got heavy linen canvas, right? Multiple layers kind of sewn together, laminated together to create a soft stiffness. But it really isn't until the middle of the 16th century that you start seeing hard stiffening.
How high up do you want this?
Yep. Center of my head. Yeah, great question. Let me see. What is the name of the style of dress that I'm wearing? So the white linen undergarment in Italian, in Florentine Italian, is called a camicia, and this is both men and women. It's not a gendered word. Men wore camicie, women wore camicie. They both had multiple of them so that, they could launder one and still have another to wear at least. Even the poorest of the poor generally had two shirts. It's not the poorest of the poor. Even people at the lower end of the spectrum, it was noted that you were very, 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 very poor, and it was very uncommon if someone only had one shirt. And we know that because when travelers would go to other places, if they saw someone with only one shirt, they would comment about it because it wasn't normal. Right? Then over top of that, we have the gamora, that's the striped gown. And then over top of that, the pink layer, which may or may not look pink depending on your screen, is called a chopa. And some of you might look at that word in English and call it siapa, chopa, but in Italian, it's just chopa. Yep. Let me see.
What's the bone needle called?
Okay, so the bone needle that he's using, that is called a botkin. It's basically a giant blunted needle, and he's literally going to be stitching my hair to my head using this linen tape in basically a circular, a wreath-like fashion, but on the back of my head, not on the top of my head. And you'll notice that we've left a whole bunch of forelock. We've left a whole bunch of forelock, and that's very typical for the second half of the 15th century. It's a facial frame. It's a facial frame. Let me see. Jayre says, I'm not. I chose this name a while ago, but I'm also a fan of historical fashions around the world. And thank you for answering the question. I'm from Somalia and Zambia. Oh, Jayre, that is wow, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I really love having a diverse and multicultural chat. That is so cool. You're from Somalia and Zambia? Do you not live there anymore? Do you miss it? I'm an expat too, so I understand that. Let's see. I'm curious how fast fashion trends changed in medieval Europe compared to today. That is a great question, Raman. Thank you for asking. So I have to start this off by saying the Middle Ages was literally named such because it is the period between the middle period, lying between the glory of the Western Roman Empire and the so-called modern era or the Renaissance. Right. So that's about 1,000 years of history, depending on more or less, no matter how you look at it. So the Middle Ages as such is absolutely not a monolith, and neither is Europe a monolith. So, depending on where you are and when you are in the Middle Ages, fashions will change more or less quickly. In the first millennium, they're not changing so quickly. There's some changes here and there, but it's not massive because, especially in the earlier part of the first millennium, people are still the horizontal loom has not yet become prominent in Europe, and so they're vertical looming fabric, which you can't produce the same kinds of quantity of fabric with a vertical loom or the speed at which you can produce it on a proper horizontal loom. And you can look up pictures of a vertical loom, a warp weighted loom specifically, and compare that to a medieval horizontal loom. Look up pictures, you'll see what I mean. So fabric in the first millennium is extremely more precious in Western Europe than it is in later periods when weaving technologies just improve massively. That means that there's just not as much you can do in terms of fashion changing because you can't vary the fabrics and the quantities quite as much. And it's just, there were changes, it just wasn't that fast. Like in the first millennium, God, every 50 years, maybe something new would come along. But the further forward you go, the faster and faster fashions change until you're getting to the 15th century, and there's absolutely a different look for every decade, no matter where you are. I could look at depictions of people from the 1400s and say, yep, 1400s from the 1410s. Yep, that's the 1410s, 1420s, 1430s, etc. Right? The headdresses change, the shapes of the garments change, the treatment of the sleeve changes, whether it's high or low necked changes, the amount of train changes, even the patterns of the fabric start changing. And that happens, it accelerates really, that change, that level of change accelerates the further forward you come in time. And it has to do with efficiencies of economies getting more centralized and technology stacking on top of technology, making it less expensive to produce fabric, less expensive to produce materials. The amount of labor basically stays the same in making garments because the biggest evolutionary step in garment making that really revolutionizes the production of the garment is the sewing machine. And that's not until the 19th century. But there are lots of technological advances in fiber production and in all of the textile production. That's the word I'm looking for, in all the stages, in the raw materials production. And that makes it so that things become more accessible. But also, in the 14th century, the Black Death basically kills 60% of Europe, which opens up all sorts of economic opportunities for people on the bottom 90% of the socioeconomic spectrum. It makes new jobs come available. It leads to a massive increase in wages. It makes it so that they can't even really continue with the systems of serfs. No, tuck that baby up. So what that means is that after the Black Death, which, kind of the 1340s to early 1350s, and then the Black Death keeps repeating. It comes back every 10 to 20 years and wipes out bunches of more people. And that's a part of the story that doesn't often get told in the history books. But what that means is that the population keeps getting knocked back down, which in turn creates more socioeconomic opportunities or more opportunities to climb the socioeconomic ladder. So more and more, a middle class grows, more people you wouldn't expect necessarily to have money, like peasants. Rich peasants are absolutely a thing, especially after the 14th century. So these people can start affording more and more things. They can start changing their clothes a little more frequently, which leads to more fashion growth. That was maybe more of an answer than you wanted, Ramen. Let me see. Out of field question. What got you thinking and wondering, got to thinking and wondering what the ruffle worn around at the time was called? Oh, you're talking about in the 16th century? It's called a ruff. R-U-F-F. So this, not this era, about 100 years after this gown, a little bit. Yeah. So 1560s, I think, is probably the first time I can really pinpoint a ruff. 1550s, 1560s is when you start seeing a ruff. And that's, yeah, R-U-F-F. It's where the word ruffle comes from, I think, or vice versa. They are related, though.
Okay.
Let me see. Hair taping looks really cool. Crazy to think sewing machines were not very common until the late 19th century in the US. Chad, they weren't common anywhere. They weren't invented until the mid-19th century.
You're done.
Oh, I am?
Yep.
Wait. No, wait, come back. the live stream went away. Why did it go away? Oh, that's, I'm not gone. Okay, everyone. So this is now, normally, this is a bit of a rush job. Normally, I would actually have done some curls in my hair overnight by actually wrapping it around my finger and then using yarn to actually hold it in place and then taking it out the next morning, and it will create curly cues. So this should be a little bit curlier than it is. In the 15th century, one of the ways that they created curls is one way to either of the two ways that they did. Either with irons that are placed in a fire and then applied to the hair, and I'm not burning my hair for anything, or two, they had chemical curling in the 15th century. So they would actually, they had these, we have recipes for this, or in the 16th century, and I'm pretty certain it dates back to the 15th century. They have these chemical concoctions that they would apply to hair to make it curl, and they all have the most egregious caustic chemicals you can imagine. So I'm not doing that either. But yeah, here's a close-up. Am I on screen?
Yep.
Right, and this style, I have to tell you, this is super comfortable. You know why? Because it's completely stable. This coiffure will last for 2 weeks and still look pretty good at the end of 2 weeks. That's how good it is. Ask me how I know. Right. Okay, so I've got one more piece I want to put on right now at any rate, the bling. Right, so bling is of course a very important part of any garment in any era. Humans, we're peacocks, we're magpies, we like the shiny things. So here is this replica of a jewel that was owned by Beatrice d'Este. This piece is by Armor and Castings. If you're looking for replica medieval or Renaissance jewelry, check armorandcastings.com, armor with a U. Right, check that out. And so I'm going to just go ahead and put this little bit of bling just really simply here around my neck. And I know it looks so modest, right? It's just this beautiful little thing, relatively speaking. But, you know, in the era, if this were actually, it's not actually a ruby, these are glass stones, right? But if this were actually a ruby and actually a sapphire, if it were actually a ruby and actually a sapphire, this would be an incredibly expensive piece of jewelry. And in 15th century Italy, they named their jewels, right? We actually have surviving the names of some of these jewels because in the inventories, their names are mentioned. How cool is that? The Duke of Milan, Ludovico di Moro, he had one called Il Lobo, the wolf. Yeah, gotta go. Okay, everyone. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I'd like to thank my channel members and my patrons for...
Stand to the side.
Right.
Do that.
Yeah. I'd like to thank my channel members and patrons for support. We're actually going to be doing another live very shortly. I'm going to be teaching a live medieval dance workshop at a completely different place than our hotel here in Bangkok. So if you tune back in, it should hopefully start at 2 p.m. my time, which is Bangkok time. So keep tuned in for that. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. If I had any questions, if you have any questions or had any questions and I didn't get to them, please pop them in the comments after the video posts and I will absolutely endeavor to answer them. I hope to see you all shortly in about 45 minutes for a medieval dance class in which I will be teaching 15th century Italian dances. Okay, everyone, until next time, I hope to see you soon. Stay creative, everyone. Bye.